Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to unpack a puzzle today that is honestly just immense in its scale. I want you to picture the sheer density and the absolute chaotic energy of India's mobility landscape. We are talking about millions upon millions of vehicles navigating through one of the most rapidly urbanizing nations on the entire planet. It's vibrant, it's packed, and right now, well, it's undergoing a revolution that could completely redefine how the entire world approaches sustainable transport. So we're going to break down the people, the policies, and the capital powering this massive shift.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this number, 14%, is really the catalyst for everything we're about to discuss. This represents the massive chunk of India's total greenhouse gas emissions that come directly from its transport sector. And when you look closely at where that 14% actually comes from, it's generated every single day by a fleet consisting of nearly 2.3 million buses, 4 million heavy-duty freight trucks, and quite literally millions of two- and three-wheelers dominating the roads. It is a massive source of urban air pollution, and it's creating immense environmental and public health pressures.
So, this brings us to the ultimate macro-level puzzle of our explainer today. How exactly does a nation in the midst of explosive urban growth flip the script? How do you take a deeply ingrained pollution problem and transform it to achieve a highly ambitious target of electrifying 30% of the national vehicle fleet? By the way, that equals a staggering 80 million electric vehicles by the year 2030. It's a huge task, but solving this puzzle is the absolutely crucial first step for India to reach a net zero emission future by 2070.
Section 1. India's electric necessity.
To really understand how they are solving this, we need to transition from those high-level macro targets right down to the actual streets. Because this transition, it isn't just about chasing some trendy green aesthetic. It is being driven by an absolute, fundamental necessity for breathable air and public health. Let's zoom in on the human element for a second, because this is exactly where the policy meets the pavement. Take Vidya Gargazavi, a former assistant accountant in Mumbai who became a micro-entrepreneur. She seamlessly switched her livelihood to driving a bright blue Mahindra electric three-wheeler through the city's incredibly dense traffic. And for her, the transition was swift and the results were clear. The lack of engine noise, the significantly lower running costs, and just the ease of driving have literally reshaped her daily life. She has more family time now and better income. Vidya represents a growing wave of citizens who are finding real economic empowerment through electric mobility.
Section 2. Vehicles driving the change. Now, what's really interesting about this shift is how the hardware itself is coming to life.
India is no longer just some passive assembly market for foreign designs. It is rapidly transformed into a serious innovation hub, engineering vehicles specifically designed from the ground up to handle extreme heat, intense monsoons, and pretty challenging road conditions. I absolutely love looking at the models leading this charge because they perfectly juxtapose high-tech premium features with rugged practicality. Take the Tata Curva EV. It boasts a massive 585-kilometer range and features vehicle-to-load tech. That means the car can literally be used as a giant battery to power your external home appliances. No way, right? Then you have the pragmatic Tata Metson EV, which is an absolute top seller, boasting a 5-star global NCAP rating with a specially reinforced structure to protect the battery in crashes. If you're looking for performance, the Mahindra XUV 400 delivers a 0 to 100 sprint in just 8.3 seconds. And for the everyday commuter, the compact Tata Tiago EV gives you urban agility at just 1/5, yes, 1/5 the running cost of a comparable petrol car.
But hey, we have to talk about affordability. There is currently what analysts like to call a price wall. If you want an electric four-wheeler, you're looking at paying a premium of roughly 3 to 7 lakh rupees over a standard petrol car. Yet, even with that massive upfront cost barrier, we are still seeing a 25% year-on-year sales jump, pushing the market to over 24.5 lakh units. So how is that happening? Well, manufacturers are offering aggressive green bonuses and exchange programs to drive down that initial price point. Plus, buyers are realizing that these vehicles are built with highly resilient LFP or lithium iron phosphate batteries. These suffer minimal degradation and are designed to easily last over 10 years, which makes the long-term economics incredibly favorable.
Section 3. Shift to mass adoption. So, the crucial point is this. The hardware is there, and the consumer appetite is absolutely growing. But to hit that 80 million vehicle target we talked about earlier, the rules of the road have to change. Up until recently, we were in what you'd call the early adopter phase. That was all about pull factors. The government was pulling consumers in with financial handouts, generous subsidies, and tax breaks. But now, We have entered the mass adoption era, and this is defined by push factors. The entire ecosystem is shifting away from relying on those subsidies, and instead, it's being fundamentally forced by strict government mandates and environmental regulations. It's no longer just a nice option, it's becoming a strict requirement.
To show you just how aggressive these push factors are getting, check out Delhi's Draft EV Policy 2.0. This is honestly one of the most aggressive regulatory timelines globally. They are proposing to outright stop the new registration of internal combustion engine, or ICE, three-wheelers by January 2027. And then, right after that, by April 2028, stop the registration of ICE two-wheelers entirely. Keep in mind, two- and three-wheelers make up nearly 75% of the city's total vehicle sales. That is a massive forced phase-out of traditional gas engines.
And on a national level, this push is happening through something called CAFE 3 norms. That stands for Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency. Basically, these rules force automakers to lower the average CO2 emissions of every single car they sell combined. There's actually a fascinating debate happening right now about technological pole vaulting. Should a country just skip intermediate tech like hybrids entirely? Critics argue that giving compliance credits for hybrids might actually lock the country into relying on fossil fuels for decades longer. So, these strict CAFE 3 norms are designed to essentially force automakers to prioritize pure, zero-emission EVs to bring their total fleet averages down.
Section 4. Roadblocks and speed bumps. Which brings us to a really curious question. What's the catch? Why isn't absolutely everything electric already? Well, as we know, revolutions are rarely smooth. First up is a staggering infrastructure gap. The global ideal benchmark is having about one public charger for every 6 to 20 EVs. In India right now, that ratio is one charger for every 235 EVs. Even with over 29,000 public stations installed, range anxiety is a very real thing for drivers. And actually, what's worse is uptime anxiety, meaning even if you do find a charger, roughly 18% of them are currently non-operational because of maintenance issues or grid failures. That is a huge hurdle, especially once you travel outside of the major Tier 1 cities.
And this brilliantly illustrates another massive blind spot: heavy-duty freight trucks. Just look at this disproportion. These heavy trucks make up a tiny 3% sliver of the total vehicle fleet on the road, yet they are responsible for a whopping 44% of all transport emissions. The problem here is that electrifying a massive freight truck currently costs nearly 4 times as much upfront as buying a traditional diesel one. That makes it incredibly tough for logistics companies to make the switch without some serious financial support.
Add to that a whole web of interconnected speed bumps. The power grid is straining, projected to hit 270 gigawatts of peak demand, meaning concentrated charging in tech hubs like Bengaluru could lead to severe local voltage fluctuations. Financially, banks still kind of view EVs as high risk because of battery degradation uncertainties, which results in punishing interest rates of 18 to 22% for everyday buyers of electric two-wheelers. Supply-wise, India is still heavily dependent on importing critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, and worryingly, only about 3 to 5% of batteries are currently recycled, which risks a massive future waste crisis if a circular economy isn't built fast.
Section 5. Powering the future. But remember, we are talking about a nation that thrives on solving incredibly complex logistical puzzles. Let's move to see how this all builds into a cohesive strategy to pave over those speed bumps. Step 1 is the new PM eDrive scheme. This is a massive 10,900 crore rupee injection to subsidize everything from e-ambulances to thousands of public chargers to directly fight that range anxiety we talked about. Step 2 tackles the supply chain head-on. The PLI scheme aims to build 50 gigawatt-hours of domestic battery manufacturing capacity right there in India, cutting that import reliance. In fact, groups like the IFC are investing $50 million into facilities to process battery materials locally. And Step 3 fixes the waste issue with new battery waste management rules that legally mandate the recycling and recovery of those critical minerals. Plus, local governments are busy deploying thousands of electric buses, transforming old public transit depots into modern, sustainable hubs.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly exciting thought. We've seen the hardware engineered for extremes, the pivot from subsidies to hard mandates, and the colossal financial mobilization required to fix the grid and supply chains. So, will India's mandate-led, resilient EV transformation become the ultimate blueprint for the rest of the world to follow? Because if they can successfully orchestrate this shift at this unprecedented scale, they will have essentially written the playbook on how to achieve rapid, sustainable global mobility. I really hope you found unpacking this puzzle as fascinating as I did.
Thank you so much for taking the time to learn with me on this explainer today, and keep asking those great questions.